In this video, we'll learn how we can use Power Automate Desktop to read Excel table and use loop to loop through each row of that table. So here is a quick demo. It basically opens Excel, reads through the table, and then basically prints out each of these row values. Okay, something like this. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is to get Power Automate Desktop. It's freely available from Microsoft. So make sure that you download and install Power Automate Desktop. There's a web version also, so you can use that as well. So once you do that, you just need to create a new flow in order to get started. Okay, so let's give a name, test read. Okay. And then it takes just a fraction of a second to open. And while it's opening, let me just show you the Excel file that I'm going to use to read the table. Okay, so here is the table. It's a pretty simple table. Basically, it has just one worksheet and then X and Y value for each of these row 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. Okay, so this is what we would like to read. Now, in my case, it's a very simple Excel, but you can have as many rows and columns as you want, and this process should work the same. Okay, so now we already have our Power Automate flow editor ready, and so we will go step by step to create this flow. And so the very first thing is we need to launch our Excel and then read that file, right? So let's just search for an action called launch. So there are different ways in which you can automate, different actions, but right here is the launch Excel. So let's drag and bring it in this editor. So it's going to ask like, okay, what do you want to do when we launch Excel? So we don't want a blank document. We actually want to open the document that we just saw, the table, right? So let's go and click open the following document and then browse to that location. So I'll just quickly browse to that. Okay, so here is that Excel file, and the next this checkbox is basically telling us whether you want the Excel to open or not. So we do want it to show up, basically make it visible. And then if you want to keep it read only, you can check this. In this case, there's really no need. But if you don't want your file to be edited by any means, then you can open as read only. Okay, so let's click save. So that's our first step. So once we open Excel, it actually creates a variable called Excel instance. Now you can rename that, but let's keep as it is. And the next thing is to read a worksheet, right? So let's search for read. And right here you can see read from Excel worksheet. So let's drag and drop here. And so it's going to ask, okay, what do we want to do? So basically in the flow, we already have open in Excel. We already got that instant right here. So the next thing is we need to retrieve the data, right? And so you can retrieve a single value, or you can say all available values from worksheet. Okay, and it is going to save that or create a variable called Excel data. Again, you can rename this if you want to rename. For example, let's do this X, Y data, right? So really you can rename this variable to be anything. Okay, as long as you don't have spaces in them. Click save. The next step is we have already read the data, so let's just close Excel. So search for close. So again, the same instant that we want to close, we do not want to save the Excel file, and so click save here. All right, so now we have open Excel, read the table, close Excel. Now all we have to do is loop this Excel data one row at a time. And so we are going to use a thing called loop. So let's search for loop. So there are different ways in which you can use loop, but for this we are going to use for each loop. So let's click and then drag it here. And the value that we would like to iterate is XY data, right? So let's do XY data. And then it's going to store into current item. Now again, you can rename it or leave it as it is. So let's leave it as it is and click save. So now we have a loop ready in which we can basically use X and Y value for each of those rows, if you remember, and then you can create a new variable. You can actually use that to do some further calculation. For simply demonstration, we are going to just create a message, and so search for message box. So display message, and let's drag it right between this loop, right? And so let's give a name, and then message we want to display is, if you remember, it was a current item, right? That's basically says data row right here. right? So click select. Now if you just select the data row, then it will print both the value x and y. If you want them to be separated, then you can use an index. So it start with a 0 index with just a square bracket, and then let's just simply copy this and on another line we use the index 1, which is the y value, and you can even say x equals to and y equals to, and then this is that variable that basically populates the number value from that table. You can just reconfigure or configure the message box as you want. So maybe this is an information, and then there's a OK button here, OK and cancel and so on. Okay, so for us, for this demo, is just a very simple message box. So click save, and then let's save this. And we are pretty much done actually. We have opened the Excel, read the data, and then basically loop through each of these rows, right? So let's run and see if it actually works. So go ahead and click run. And so you will see that Excel will pop out. It'll basically read the data, it'll close the Excel, and then this is the first row. Now, in your case, you may want to skip the first row because it's a header value, here header names, right? So click OK. So again, this is the next row, and then this is the third, this is fourth, and as soon as I click OK, it'll just end the flow, right? So it's done. So this is how you basically create a Power Automate workflow to read a table from Excel and then use those values in your flow. All right. So I hope you learned something new. If you did, click on the like button. And if you like the content of my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.